Hi everyone. In 1976, the UK won the Eurovision Song Contest with a song called Save All Your Kisses for Me by a band called Brotherhood of Man. The manager and producer of Brotherhood of Man was a man by the name of Tony Hiller, who was also co-writer of the song. He also wrote the song United We Stand and was very revered in the music business. However, while the rest of us were very happy about winning Eurovision in 1976, it changed the life of GAYLE Hiller, Tony's daughter, and not for the better. GAYLE, tell us how it changed your life.
To be honest, it was quite devastating because 2 days after the Eurovision Song Contest, my father left. He walked out of the house. Apparently, my mother said he came down the stairs with a suitcase, put a £5 note on the table and left, leaving us obviously all devastated. And you have to remember that only a few years before, I nearly died. I was in a coma fighting for my life. I'd had a terrible road accident. So to have two things, devastating things happen to me within the space of 2 years, it was just awful.
And how was your father to you and the family before that Eurovision Song Contest? Was he a normal father, or was his job still keeping him away?
Well, I mean, I always remember his presence. I mean, he had this great presence. But actually, I don't ever remember him in the evening because he was always away with his group or going out to sign artists up. So, you know, he wasn't there in the evening. I remember him more as a weekend father. I mean, we used to go out to his family. He was very close to all his sisters. And I remember we used to go to one sister on a Saturday, and everybody would all sit around and they'd all listen to 50s and 60s music. And one of the cousins used to say, "Oh, why don't, do you know the bridge of this song?" So it was very lovely. And I remember the restaurants. I remember my family coming round playing badminton on the lawn. We used to have badminton tournaments. So that was nice. But actually, in the evenings, though, he was never there.
So during that time, you remember him more as an absent father, but not an abusive father. And when I say abusive, emotionally abusive rather
Yes.
than anything else. But that definitely changed after Eurovision, where he separated himself into the world where he was successful and the world where he felt he wasn't being so successful.
I mean, yes. And I remember that when I was living in Hadley Common with my mother and he'd left, I was beside myself. And, I just wanted to see him, and I'd do awful things. I mean, I even slashed my wrists so that my father would come to see me. And even when I did that, he still didn't come to see me. But then after I think because of pressure from his older sister and his family, he did start seeing me. And eventually, my father and I had a lovely relationship, and I even started living with him in his muse house. Although there again, I was at home in the evening most times. In fact, I used to go out. In fact, I remember there was a wine bar down the road from the house, and I used to meet some friends, and one of them was Milton Reed. Do you remember the big guy that used to be in the Condor advert?
Yes.
He used to drive a big American car, and he used to wear a bolero and culottes and cowboy boots. And I mean, he was fun, and they were like my friends that I used to meet. But when my father was home, very occasionally, it was lovely. And we used to go out to show business parties with Eric Hall. I was his +1 at restaurants, so at that time, I think that was the best time with my father.
Yeah.
But then,
no, go ahead.
But then I decided he met somebody, and that's when unfortunately, that was like the end of our relationship. He used to sit with her in his dressing gown, you know, having breakfast, and I felt a bit funny. So I decided at the time, I was 18, and I said to my dad, listen, Dad, I'd like to go and live abroad. And he actually begged me not to go. And I said, no, I want to. But you see, while I was abroad, I said, no, I said, I'd really like to come home, Dad. And he said, I'm sorry. He said, but you don't have a bedroom anymore. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, it's been she, meaning his second wife, because I don't refer to her by name. She had made the room into a study. In my bed, all my things, everything had completely gone. But I hadn't known that at the time. So obviously I phoned my mother up, who was in between moving to another house. And she was obviously staying with her parents. But obviously I phoned my mum up and they welcomed me with open arms. So I went to live with my mum and my grandparents because my dad didn't want me there. I didn't have a bedroom.
All of this obviously had an effect on you, as it would with anyone. So when did you decide to write the book and put this all down on paper? Because you've written this book, interestingly, as a series of letters that you would have liked to have sent to your father. So when did you decide to do that, and what made you decide to do it in that format?
My father had died and I couldn't go through with this bereavement. I mean, I do speak about it in my letters that, you know, trying to grieve for someone is the most hardest thing. I mean, you'd be okay, and then the next minute, it's like a tsunami comes inside you and it whirls your emotions around and you're left absolutely devastated and crying like a baby. I was almost suicidal, so I had to go to the doctors and I took antidepressants. And I chose to curl up on the settee and not have to go through this bereavement because it was too painful for me. So my cousin, who was a great support, I actually went to Spain with her, and it was the first time I'd flown for 30 years because I was petrified of flying, but I made it. And she obviously, we were like sisters. So she knew how I felt and she knew how my father was. And then she was the one that suggested, well, why don't you write him a letter? I said, don't be silly, he's dead. She says, no, write him a letter and tell him how you really feel and how you made him feel. She said, you know, it would be really good for you. So, and writing has always been my forte. I've always been able to express myself through writing. So I did that and I wrote a letter, and obviously my cousin saw it, and one letter became one letter became two, and eventually she said to me, you know what, Gayle? She said, you've got a book there. I said, don't be silly. She said, you have. She said, and also, she said, a lot of people, you know, go through this grieving process as well. You know, it would probably help other people because nobody speaks about bereavement in this society that we live in.
No, and that's what interested me about this book, Gayle, and why I took it on, because I do think it is a book, having read through it, I do think it is a book that is going to help other people. And I do think it helped you as well in terms of you putting all this down on paper. But I have to say, it's not just your writing skills, is it? There's painting behind you. And you also do some painting. So tell us about that.
Well, I have always been artistic. I mean, I've always put stencils on the wall and used to paint my house. But I didn't know that I could paint on canvas till I started doing arts and crafts with my grandson. And, you know, he had this kit with acrylic paints and little canvases. So with him, I started doing collages on the canvas. And then the next thing I know, I started doing a face, and I painted the face and I thought, oh, that looks quite good. So then I think another week later, I actually did a painting on a canvas, and I was really surprised that I thought it was quite good. So that gave me the confidence to start painting on canvas. And from a friend, my work was exhibited at the Hugh Corbett Centre in Islington. And one of my paintings was of Stormzy, because I thought, well, I want to do something that's quite current and everything. And him and the manager were alerted to the painting. They rather liked it. And a few weeks later, I was called up to say, would I come and sign the painting for Stormzy? I said, what do you mean? They says, no, they want to buy the painting. And I couldn't believe it. I nearly had a heart attack. So I then said, well, I'm sorry, when do you want me to come? They said Wednesday. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it on Wednesday. I'm going to the doctor's. And I put the phone down. And then I thought, you idiot girl, you know, this is Stormzy, the grime artist. And I'm saying I can't make it. So I phoned up. I said, you know what, forget about the doctor's appointment. I'm going to come and sign the painting. Stormzy wasn't there, but I signed it. And I saw the director of the video, the music video that he was making, and which was going to have Stormzy in. And he said, I'd like to buy your painting and give it to Stormzy as a memento. So that was it, really. And I was in the newspapers about it, because as I say, I've never had any training.
And is that picture in the book?
Well, I hope it is. I don't know. I'm not sure.
We'll check. Now, you have a family of your own.
Yes.
And a very proud mum you are as well, I know, and a very good mum. And I take it that a lot of what you've learned is through not wanting them to go through what you went through.
Well, yeah. The thing is, I've brought 3 children up as a single parent. I've been divorced twice, had 2 very short marriages, and as they say, left holding the baby. But I've loved being a mum, and I give my children my time. I think, you know, when you have children, you can't be selfish, and you've got to be there for them.
Yeah, and you've learnt all the good and all the bad that came from your childhood, and now doing a very good job. And I know that from other people as well. Gayle, thank you so much for this interview. It's I think a book that will really help other people. I think there's a lot of people that have been in your situation. Their father doesn't have to be famous. It's a situation which sadly is all too familiar, but it's lovely to see that you've come out the other side so well-rounded and happy, and you should be very proud of yourself for this. And I think a lot of people will want to read the book. So thank you very much, Gayle Hiller.
Thank you.
So, as I've said, I'm very proud to be agenting this book, which is one of 2 books that are being brought out by Agent Fox Media and Unbound Publishing. The link to buy this book is with this broadcast, so I very much hope that you will purchase this book. It's a very worthwhile story, as I think you'll agree. Thank you very much.